all of you can set up an effective pathway to permanent residency in Australia.
Do you think skill migration is really promising now?
There's about 25,000 ICT business analysts
I see.
already who have lodged their expression of interest waiting for an invitation.
There are around 2 million people who are on their 485s, 500s, working holiday visas, 482s.
You won't really get PR. Welcome to Season 2 of Visa Game Plan. Thank you to all of our followers who are joining us again from Season 1, where we discussed all things employer-sponsored visas. In this season, we're going to discuss skill migration and how all of you can set up an effective pathway to permanent residency in Australia through the skill migration program. I'm joined again today with my colleague Amasha. How are you?
I'm good, Keith. How are you?
I'm doing really well and very excited to discuss the current state of the skill migration program in Australia.
Definitely. So maybe we should start with giving our clients an outline of what the skill migration program in Australia is. And also maybe you can explain a bit of your thoughts surrounding the predictions of 2026 skill migration stats.
Definitely. I think basically last year in 2025, we saw the skill migration program really take a backseat and the employer-sponsored program be the one that was really at the forefront.
Right.
So 482s and 186 visas became very, very popular. But since 1 July 2025, so the skill migration program runs from the 1st of July to the 30th of June every year.
Right.
So since 1 July 2025 to the 30th of June 2026, what we can observe is that the department has really brought back the 189 invitation round. So they've already said that they're going to have it quarterly.
Right.
They've had 2 invitation rounds already, one in August and one in November. And we saw almost 18,000 new invitations be issued. So my prediction for 2026 is that the skill migration program's back. But you're still going to need to really think about the employer-sponsored visa pathway as a credible alternative or a backup.
Also, I've heard that now when it comes to TR applicants in Australia, there are around 2 million people who are on their 485s, 500s, working holiday visas, 482s. But only 132,000 skill migration visas have been granted. What is the actual rate of invitation people get surrounding skill migration?
Yeah. So basically, what that refers to is the total number of temporary visa holders in Australia is about 2 million or a little bit over 2 million currently available in Australia, right? But only 132,000 is reserved for the skill migration program. But the real issue, Amasha, is actually not 120,000 people don't get invited to apply for PR.
Right.
That refers to the total amount of visas granted in a year. The actual rate of people who are going to get invited for PR will be about 40,000. So when there's over 2 million temporary visa holders, being one of those 40,000 new migrants that get invited to apply for PR every year is a very competitive process.
Yes, that does sound very competitive. So in that sense, do you think skill migration is really promising now when it comes to the numbers?
I think skill migration still is a viable pathway for those that plan very early.
So when you say early, what would you think is a good time that they start thinking about it?
Fantastic question, actually. So when you are looking to set up a permanent residency strategy, you really need to go back to first principles and think about what is the skill you have. Because the Australian government gives PR to those who have a skill that is in shortage in the Australian economy, right? So if you don't have a skill that is something that is in critical shortage in Australia, you won't really get PR. So when you're thinking about planning your PR journey, when you're on the student visa itself, you have to think, am I studying a skill that Australia either needs today or will need in the next 5 years when I graduate?
So which means the earlier they think about it, the earlier they come to you, then they'll be able to better strategize their pathway in that sense surrounding skill migration.
Definitely. I think the best thing to do is to go and see a migration lawyer right at the outset. Say you land in Australia, within the first 6 months of studying your course on a student visa, maybe come and see us, because then we can tell you whether the course you're studying makes sense in terms of getting PR in the long term, or whether you should actually change the course and study something that is actually in demand in Australia.
Okay, now let's say there are some clients who can go through the skill migration pathway, but then sometimes some clients might be unfortunate to take that pathway. Do you have another alternative where they can kind of strategize their PR pathway apart from skill migration?
Definitely, because if you observe the numbers, as we discussed a little while earlier, if there's over 2 million temporary visa holders, but only about 40,000 new people get PR in a year, relying solely on skill migration doesn't work. So what we do at MJ Legal particularly is we set up backup strategies for the client.
Right.
And one of the best backup strategies would be this employer-sponsored visa. So going into things like the 482, the 186, or even a 407 training visa.
And
can
also the regional employer sponsorship visa is
the
that
494.
494.
That's a
Yes.
very good option as well for clients with 3 years of work experience. So the message I want to put out there to our audience is don't just wait to get a skill assessment, lodge an EOI and get invited, but also really think about employer sponsorship, getting employed and staying with the same employer for the long term so that they will get familiar with your skill set and ultimately they will decide whether they want to sponsor you or not as a backup if you don't get invited for skill
So
migration.
basically, at MG Legal, what we do is we kind of take the client background, analyze their situation, and then suggest the best background. If it's the skill migration pathway they can use or the employer-sponsored pathway they can use. How does the whole strategizing part of it works with you?
So I think at a consultation with us, what we are really looking at with our clients is to start out with what is their background, how much work experience do they have, what educational experience they have, and once we decide that, we say, okay, I think there's a realistic chance of you getting invited for skill migration, so you don't need to worry about employer sponsored. Or on the other hand, we say, no, look, you are, let's say, an ICT business analyst. There's about 25,000 ICT business analysts
I see.
already who have lodged their expression of interest waiting for an invitation. For those clients, we tell them, look, either you have to change your pathway because you don't have a job as a business analyst, or if you have a job as a business analyst, maybe it's time to start talking to your employer about an employer sponsorship because even if we do lodge an EOI, maybe you don't get invited. You know?
Right. That was very comprehensive, Kate, and it was really good information. I hope our clients got what they needed from this as well. Thank you very much. Hoping to see you in another episode.
Thank you, Amash. I'll see you around in the second episode.
Thank you. That's it for Visa Game Plan today. Thank you, guys.